Okay, let's talk about something huge. Artificial intelligence in medicine. It promises to save lives, to revolutionize everything we know about healthcare. But what happens if the very tools we're using to judge that promise are, well, fundamentally flawed? Because when lives are on the line, you have to be sure you're following a reliable map, not one that's about to lead everyone off a cliff.
It's no secret, right? AI, especially these new large language models, or LLMs, are completely shaking up healthcare. We're not talking about a small change here. This is a fundamental shift in how medicine gets done, all thanks to algorithms that can chew through mountains of data in the blink of an eye. For one thing, there's this incredible promise of supercharging diagnostics. Imagine helping doctors spot diseases way earlier, and with more accuracy than we've ever seen before. That alone could totally transform patient outcomes for so many people.
And it doesn't stop there. AI is also poised to completely overhaul drug discovery, sniffing out new treatments at a speed that would have seemed like science fiction just a few years ago. The potential is, and I'm not exaggerating here, absolutely staggering.
But, and this is the big but, with all this excitement flying around, how do we actually separate the incredible hype from the cold, hard reality? How do we make sure the tools guiding our most critical life and death decisions are genuinely safe and reliable?
To figure all this out, clinicians and leaders rely on things called systematic reviews. You can think of them as our guidebooks for this new AI world. But what if the map itself is just plain wrong?
And that's exactly where the trouble begins. A recent critique from Dr. Zvi Weizman points out that one of these major reviews, our supposed map, is riddled with serious flaws. So let's follow his trail and see exactly where this guide goes wrong.
The critique zeroes in on 3 critical flaws in how the research was even conducted in the first place. So let's dig into them one by one.
First up, is this map missing huge chunks of territory? You know, a good map has to show you the whole landscape. But it looks like this review might be leaving out some of the most important new places because of something called publication bias.
The specific problem is something called a citation threshold. The authors of the review decided to only include studies from big, established journals with over 13,000 citations. This rule automatically filters out newer, more specialized journals, which, ironically, is exactly where the most exciting, groundbreaking work often shows up first.
And as Dr. Weizman says, in a field that's moving this fast, that kind of filter isn't just a tiny oversight, it's a massive risk. We could be systematically ignoring the most important new breakthroughs, leaving us with a map that was basically out of date the day it was printed.
All right, let's get to the second flaw, because this one raises a really basic question. When the review says one AI model has the best performance, what on earth does that even mean? Are they actually measuring anything useful?
You see, the problem is that all the studies they compared used different data, different ways of measuring success, in different real-world situations. Trying to rank them based on best performance is like comparing apples and oranges. It gives you a nice-looking chart that seems scientific, but it's fundamentally meaningless.
And here's the kicker. The review's own authors actually admit this. They state right in their paper that good performance in one situation doesn't mean it'll work in another. This admission basically pulls the rug out from under their own analysis, yet they still made these big headline-grabbing claims anyway.
And that brings us to the third flaw, which might be the most worrying of all. Are we building on a solid foundation? A review is only as good as the studies it includes, so you have to ask, how good was the original science?
The critique reveals that the review never actually assessed the quality of the studies. It just tallied up how many times the paper claimed it had the best model. That's like trying to build a skyscraper without ever checking the quality of the steel. Sure, you get a tall building, but you have absolutely no idea if it's going to collapse.
So the review itself has some major methodological problems, but there's an even bigger issue here. This massive gap between the neat theories in a research paper and the messy reality of a hospital.
The review operates on this very simple, clean, linear model of how AI works. You know, data goes in, the AI thinks for a bit, and a suggestion comes out for the doctor. It looks neat, tidy, and totally predictable.
But that's not how medicine actually works, not even close. Real clinical practice is messy, it's complicated, it involves entire teams of people and constant feedback loops. This simple little model completely misses that reality, which makes its conclusions pretty useless in the real world.
The review also just ignored a bunch of other critical pieces of the puzzle. It glossed over the huge challenge of actually validating these tools in a real hospital. It barely touched on patient safety or what happens when these things go wrong, and it completely ignored the economics of it all. The cost, the return on investment, the hidden resources, these are not minor details. They're absolute deal breakers.
So, what's the verdict here? After looking at all these flaws, it's crystal clear that we have to demand a much, much higher standard of evidence before we even think about putting these tools into practice.
Let's just boil it down. The publication bias gives leaders a skewed view of how well AI even works. The flawed metrics lead to totally misleading comparisons. The lack of quality checks means you're at risk of basing multi-million-dollar decisions on flimsy science. And no economic analysis, you're just flying blind on cost and ROI. These aren't just academic debates, these are fundamental business and patient safety risks.
Ultimately, the takeaway message is this. The incredible power of AI has to be met with an equally powerful commitment to checking our work. Using simple, flawed methods for evaluation isn't just not good enough, it's downright dangerous.
And that leaves us with one final, pretty daunting question. As AI gets smarter and smarter, the real test will be whether we can build an evaluation system that's just as intelligent as the technology it's supposed to be judging. That's the challenge we all face now.